Welcome to British Focus, your go-to channel for the latest updates on UK politics and current affairs. If you haven't already, make sure to like this video and subscribe to stay informed on everything happening in Britain. Now, let's dive into today's story. Yesterday, Keir Starmer faced a major disruption during the promotion of his new housing policy. What was meant to be a carefully orchestrated event quickly turned into chaos as furious farmers staged a protest, demanding that the Prime Minister address them directly. The reason? His government's decision to impose a hefty tax on the farming sector, a move seen by many as yet another blow to hard-working agricultural workers. As tensions escalated, the crowd grew increasingly frustrated, chanting and calling for Starmer to come out and face them. But rather than engage with those affected by his policies, Starmer chose to avoid confrontation altogether. Footage from the scene shows the Prime Minister sneaking out through a back door, refusing to acknowledge the concerns of the very people his policies are impacting.
It must be really incredible to be part of building, actually here, not just building houses, but building a community.
Just talk to us! Just talk to us!
Well, I was there obviously to look at a new development, a very exciting development just outside Milton Keynes, which is going to be homes for very many people. And yes, there was a protest there. And to some extent, that draws out quite an important discussion that we have to have as a country. Because we passed a budget in the autumn of last year that had to do two things. The first was to stabilise and balance the books, the economy, and the second was to invest in things like our NHS and in housing. And we're seeing some early figures that are welcome. Obviously, the interest rates were cut for the third time since we've been in government last week. We've had growth figures today coming out showing growth in the economy, small but important steps. And of course that means that mortgages will go down, and also NHS figures that show that waiting lists are now down to the lowest level for 2 years in the 6 or 7 months that we've had to work on that. That is a really welcome first set of steps. We need to go much further. But in order to balance the books, we had to take tough but right decisions on national insurance contributions and ending the tax break for farmers. And these are political choices, but what you can't have is interest rates coming down, the growth we need in the economy, your waiting list coming down, and maintain the tax break for farmers. And people watching this will understand that that is a choice. They will know which they would prefer. Do they prefer their waiting list to come down? Do they want their mortgages to come down, the economy to start working for everyone? That's what we're trying to achieve. Or do we want to keep a tax break for farmers? But you can't have both. So we've made a political choice.
Keir Starmer, in his usual fashion, decided to spin yet another blatant attack on hard-working British farmers into a so-called necessary political choice. Yes, you heard that right. Instead of acknowledging the frustration and genuine concerns of those who feed the nation, he turned the conversation into a twisted ultimatum. Either we keep tax breaks for farmers, or we fund the NHS and stabilise the economy. Because, apparently, in Labour's Britain, you can't do both. How convenient. Let's break this down, shall we? Starmer justified his decision by claiming that his government had to make tough but right choices to balance the books. He went on about reducing NHS waiting lists and supporting economic growth, as if those things directly hinge on taxing British farmers into the ground. Now, call me skeptical, but does anyone actually believe this nonsense? Are we seriously supposed to accept that the only way to lower waiting times for vital healthcare services is to slap higher taxes on the very people who provide us with food? Let's be honest, Labour's obsession with squeezing every last penny out of the working class while funneling billions elsewhere is nothing new. They'll throw endless amounts of taxpayer money into initiatives that benefit everyone except the British people. But when it comes to ensuring our farmers aren't driven out of business, suddenly there's no room in the budget. And they expect us to nod along in agreement? Give me a break. What's even more insulting is how Starmer tried to gaslight the entire country. In his interview, he framed this as a choice that the British public must make. Do we want our mortgages to go down? Do we want shorter NHS waiting times? Or do we want to let farmers keep their tax breaks? Because, according to him, we can't have both. As if farmers are some kind of privileged elite hoarding wealth while the rest of us suffer. The reality, of course, is far different. What Starmer conveniently ignored in his little speech is that this isn't just about removing a tax break, it's about imposing a new, punishing tax on farmers that will ultimately hit every single British household. Farmers are not multimillionaires lounging in mansions. They are working day and night, battling rising costs, regulations, and an endless stream of government red tape just to put food on our tables. Now, thanks to Starmer's brilliant policies, many of them will be forced to raise their prices just to survive. And who do you think will pay for that in the end? That's right, you. And the British public saw right through it. The backlash was swift and merciless. People took to social media to tear Starmer's ridiculous argument apart. One user sarcastically pointed out, "There you have it, folks. The only thing stopping us from living in a utopia was farmers passing on their farms to their children without the government taking a cut." Another called him out for blatantly twisting two completely unrelated issues together, saying, "What a ridiculous statement. He's talking utter bollocks." Others questioned why Labour always seems to find billions for foreign aid, illegal migrants, and pet projects with no tangible benefit to the British people. Yet when it comes to easing the burden on farmers, there's apparently no money left. Funny, isn't it? A government that claims to care about levelling up and fairness seems to have no problem piling the weight of their financial mismanagement onto the shoulders of the very people keeping the country running. And let's not even get started on the hypocrisy. One particularly sharp commenter asked why Starmer didn't apply this same logic when Labour was handing out massive inflation-busting pay raises to train drivers. Did he ask the public to choose between shorter NHS waiting times or higher wages for unions? Of course not. But when it comes to farmers, suddenly it's a matter of national survival. Then there's the outright deceit. Starmer repeatedly referred to this as a tax break, when in reality, it's a new tax on land and homes owned by farmers, a tax on the very spaces they use to produce food for the nation. And what happens when their costs go up? Food prices go up. And who pays for that? We do. It doesn't take an economist to figure this out, yet Starmer stands there, smugly pretending he's making some noble sacrifice for the greater good. It's almost laughable if it weren't so infuriating. Labour, the so-called party of the working class, has become the party of punishing those who actually work for a living. Their priorities are crystal clear: virtue signalling, globalist policies, and squeezing as much money as possible out of hard-working Britons while ensuring that their elite circles remain unaffected. The public isn't buying it, and the reaction has been nothing short of brutal. People are waking up to the fact that Labour isn't the party of fairness. It's the party of high taxes, reckless spending, and devastating consequences for ordinary people. And if this is what Starmer has planned for Britain, then we're all in for a very rough ride.